Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, um, how you doing? I want to talk to you a bit more about stress, but from a different perspective. I want to introduce you to um, personality types and a couple of other items related to personality. Kind of give you insight into what can exacerbate stress among other things. So let's jump right into this stuff. First of all, I want to uh, present to you a name, Carl Jung. Jung is spelled Jung, but it's pronounced Jung. I think he was Swiss. Doesn't really matter. I don't remember. At any rate, he was one of the biggies in the establishment of types of personalities, and that's what I want to cover to begin with and just give you an idea and you'll get an idea of what kind of personality you possess. So let's get right into this. Jungian personalities, the Jungian perspective, Jungian spelled Jungian, Carl Jung's perspective, okay? And away we go. Type a type A personality. A person with a type A personality is competitive, they're aggressive, they're ambitious, they're impatient, and they can be rather, uh, they can behave in unacceptable ways in terms of this aggressiveness. Not physically harming somebody, but being a little over the top in their dealings with other people, particularly when they're competing. That's a type A. So think about these things as I introduce you to these. Type A, competitive, aggressive, ambitious, impatient, so on and so forth. Sometimes overly aggressive. Now, compare that to a type B. A type B personality is calm, cool, and collected, patient, just this laid back attitude. Nothing seems to bother them a lot. They get by very well. They're not argumentative. Type A's frequently are argumentative. They want to argue about everything. They want to put you in your place. They want to stomp on you to make it to the next level, etc. Again, not physically, but mentally. And then we have two others. I'm going to go back to these A and B's in a minute. You have type C's, non-assertive, in other words, not aggressive. They have a need to be accepted by those around them. Sometimes they have a hidden anger because they can't be aggressive. They feel as though they're inadequate. And then type D's, they have an overall negative outlook. You've probably met people like that. Just everything that they can find negative in a situation, they do. And they are very prone to depression. Type C's are more prone to anxiety. Now, let's go back to A and B. I told you that A's are competitive, aggressive, ambitious, impatient, sometimes pushy, so on and so forth. Very outgoing personality. Type B, calm, patient, cool, laid back. But can I be an AB or a BA? Can I be a CD or a DC? And the answer is yes. But one of those types is going to be your predominant personality. So I may be a type B where I'm calm, patient, laid back, but I can be competitive. But I'm competitive in a good way. I can be aggressive, but I'm aggressive in a good way. In other words, I'm not being over the top. I'm not shoving, pushing, even mentally to do anything. Can I be ambitious? Absolutely. Many of you are probably type B personalities in this class, but you're ambitious or you wouldn't be in college. Hope that makes sense. Can you be impatient in some areas and calm and patient in other areas and still be a type B? Yeah. Can I be a type A and have patience in some areas and be impatient? And the answer again is yes. but some of that is going to be predominant. So I could have some B traits, but I'm predominantly A, and vice versa. C's and D's oftentimes need, I won't say oftentimes, sometimes need some psychological intervention, particularly type D's. Now, those are Jungian perspective, Jung's perspective on personality. Let's talk about these newer types that have come about. These new types I'm going to read. I was going to say reintroduce you to. That I'm going to introduce you to are probably 5 years old, and there's controversy here. And when you hear them, you probably will agree that they're rather controversial. And there are four of these, as there are in Carl Jung's version, and these are different. So let's begin with these. The new types, if you want to title it that: average, an average personality, high in neuroticism and extroversion, low in openness. What does that mean? If you're neurotic, then you don't have control over your emotions. You're emotionally unstable. If you're extroverted, you're very outgoing. You can even be boisterous or pushy. Low in openness means that you're not approachable. If you're reserved, then you are emotionally stable. You're still not particularly open, but you're not neurotic. The third type is weird: role models. As far as neuroticism, you're low in that category, meaning you're pretty stable emotionally. You're very agreeable, and you're high in openness. I can come and speak to you. You come and speak to me, whatever the case is. And then the last is self-centered. They're very extroverted. They're outgoing. They're talkative, sometimes a little pushy. They're low in openness. You can't reason with them. You can't approach them very well. They possess some forms of agreeableness, but not many. And they're conscientious. That means that they produce, they achieve. So these four new ones came from more of a survey than really a sound psychological study, at least in the opinion of many. So you can pick and choose among these, kind of figure out which you think you are. Don't classify yourself absolutely as an A, B, C, D, or an average, reserved, role model, or self-centered. We have tests for that. Minnesota Multiphasic Personality Inventory, for example, MMPI. This is a very popular test given to humans to see what their personality types are. So don't think if you identify yourself as one of these that I've explained to you that you're messed up. You're not. You'll be okay. Trust me. Now, I want to talk about a trait for a minute. This trait, and this will be helpful for you, very helpful if you adopt this. This trait is a nurture trait. In other words, you're not born with this trait. You have to develop it through trial and error, basically. And the name of it is hardiness, Hardiness, hardiness. What is hardiness? There are three aspects to this. Commitment. A person that possesses hardiness is very committed. They have a strong sense of commitment to work, to their personal life. They readily involve themselves in problem solving. You've met people like that. The next is challenge. Rather than look at something as a problem, they look at it as a challenge, something to be overcome, something to learn from, That's a growth thing, growth in intelligence, growth in emotional things. So I run into a problem, I don't start crying and running around waving my hands in the air. I look at it as a challenge to be overcome, and that's what I do. I attempt and achieve that. And the last is is called control. Um, you have control of your life. Your viewpoint is that I'm in control of things. I'm not the victim of things. Now, here's something to consider. Locus, Locus, locus of control. Locus of control tells you whether you're in control or whether you are under control. So what does that mean? How does that work? Okay, if I have an internal locus of control, if you want to pretend that locus is location, that's fine if that helps you understand locus. So I have an internal location of control. I'm in control of me. I look at things as challenges. I'm committed. I improvise. Listen to these three words. I improvise, I adapt, and I overcome. That was taught to me personally by the United States Marine Corps when I was a Marine. Take a situation, improvise, use what's available, adapt things and yourself to the situation, and overcome the challenge. Improvise, adapt, and overcome. That's something anybody can. You don't have to be a United States Marine to learn how to do that. You apply that in every situation. You can apply it right now to your schoolwork. So locus of control that's internal, good thing. External locus of control, bad thing. That means that you feel like you're a victim. What's going on in your life is everybody else's fault. Uh, that's not very emotionally stable, because if you look at the reality of it, you know good and well that a lot of those things are controllable by you, at least up to a point. And then when you get to the point you can't control or you're out of control of whatever it is, then you improvise, adapt, and overcome. That doesn't mean violently, by the way. It means scholastically, academically. Use what you own up there between your ears, called a brain. Good? Last thing, coping. How do I cope with stress? Well, there's some misunderstandings here. People say, I have good coping skills. Well, what is that? I don't know what that is. I'm going to tell you how you really cope with things, and then I'll tell you probably why people come up with this, quote, coping skills business. So let's look at how you cope. You face a situation. A situation comes about. It can be chronic, which is ongoing. It can be acute, which is short-lived. It's a little bit more difficult when it's ongoing. But nonetheless, here's what you do. You approach this situation with what's called a primary appraisal. What does that involve? It involves you making decisions. Is this threat actually a threat? Is it a challenge rather than a threat? So is this harmful? Is it potentially going to harm me? Or is it something that can be controlled? And that's the third item: challenge, threatening, and harmful. Is this thing potentially going to harm me? You will find out you make those decisions pretty quickly, particularly in an emergency situation. And even more particularly if you've been trained for it. So that's your primary appraisal. And again, depending on the situation, this can be almost instantaneous, or it can take a short period of time. And I can't give you examples of short period of time because it's going to be different with every situation. Harmful, threatening, challenging. That's primary appraisal. That brings me to secondary appraisal. What will I do to handle this? Well, you have these things called coping methods. So my secondary appraisal is going to involve what coping method I choose to handle this situation. And there are two: problem focused and emotion focused. If I choose problem focused, that coping method, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to overcome the problem. I'm going to do everything in my power to remove this problem. And you can do it in a lot of ways. I got an exam coming up. That's a problem. I'm going to study. That's a problem-focused approach. What's study do? It removes the problem. I'm prepared for the exam. I have an exam coming up personally. I've got to take the written test for my pilot's license. Very difficult thing to study for because there's a lot of ambiguous information out there. So for me, it's a problem right now. What am I going to do? I'm going to improvise, adapt, and overcome using a problem-focused approach, and I'm going to pass the exam. Or you can employ the second type of method, and that's called emotion-focused. Let's say that you're facing a problem, many times these would be chronic, that you cannot overcome. You have a disease. No matter how much improvisation and adapting and overcoming you attempt, you can't beat the disease. I'm talking about serious stuff. So what I'm going to do in the meantime, I'm going to employ emotion-focused methods. Simply means that I'm going to control my emotions. I'm not going to let this thing beat me down emotionally. I'm going to learn to deal with this thing. So you're not removing the problem, you are dealing with the emotions involved in the problem. Okie doke. I hope all that makes sense. If you have questions about this, or if you want me to email you some of these terms with explanations, send me an email and I'll be more than happy to, because it's a lot of information. All right. Have a good day.